come to the end of the Heisman Trophy race, one that may have produced the rarest of all sports scenarios, a question with no wrong answer. From the Dodge Sports Desk, I'm Mike Sherman, and this is the Press Row. My guests are Barry Trammell, who is relieved to say that it's time to stop talking about Texas and start talking about the BCS title matchup, and John Rohde, who wonders whether it's worth eavesdropping for stock tips on the elevators at the Holiday Bowl, and Jenny Carlson, who is ready to leave public opinion surveys to George Gallup and go back to writing columns. Jenny, let's start with you. You've been leading up our survey of the Heisman Trophy voting. You've been polling people all around the country with our staff. What are the results, and how good do you feel about those results?
Well, it was a total team effort. I sound like a coach all of a sudden. But lots of us calling on lots of people for votes. We got about 100, a little over 100. And Sam Bradford was our winner, won with a pretty nice number of points and first-place votes, I felt like. I think he got 47 of the first-place votes of the 100 voters that we looked at, which is a pretty good number, I thought. We had a really strong return from the SEC footprint, from the Big 12 footprint, and Sam emerged as the winner of our exit poll. We did this a couple years ago, the year that Jason White won and the year that Matt Leinart won, and we predicted both of those winners through our exit poll. So I feel like it's pretty good. I think it may end up being closer than maybe our numbers, show, but it's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if any three of these guys are announced as the winner on Saturday, and yet I think it is going to be Sam Bradford. That's what those numbers tell me at this point.
John, you've been doing that Scripps-Howard poll or voting in it for a lot of years. Scripps said Colt McCoy, and it was an interesting flip.
Yeah. It was the week before. Bradford had 7 first-place votes, McCoy 2, and Tebow 1. Then Bradford went out and won the Big 12 title, and suddenly McCoy was ahead. So, and I talked to a few people in the press box who said, hey, I'm voting for McCoy because OU shouldn't be here, which is ridiculous. So, and I'm with Jenny. It's going to be a lot closer, I think, than what our poll did. Our poll got a lot of the Midwest and South voters because they know us the best, and they returned our calls and emails. We didn't get a lot from the South. Tebow's running unopposed in the South. He'll just kill the South and probably the Atlantic. But McCoy and Bradford will be right where they should be in the Midwest and the South.
You know what I thought was interesting, though, about some of the geographic breakdowns? I thought Bradford hung closer to Tebow in the South than I thought he would, and Bradford was more ahead of the pack in the Big 12 footprint, which I was a little surprised at. I felt like that might be a closer vote between he and McCoy. So that, to me, when I saw that he was running, although he wasn't going to beat out Tebow in the South, but he was still running closer than I maybe thought, that was when it said to me, I think this guy's going to win it.
Barry, who's going to win?
I sort of think Sammy B will win, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Tebow. What's interesting to me is that for the first time in memory, there's not only is there not a contender from out west, there's not even anybody that's worthy of a vote. You know, if you want to throw an off-the-wall vote in this deal, you go with Sean Green or Javon Ringer or somebody. There's not anybody that's warranting any support out west. So who those guys vote for west of the Rockies, I think is going to be really key.
I think it's going to be a hanging Chad vote. I think Tebow's going to have more first-place votes, and he's not going to win. I think Bradford's going to win. Tebow's going to have more first-place votes.
It's going to go to the Electoral College?
It's going to be the whole popular vote against electoral. I think that could happen. And there'll be outcry from Florida, and they'll cling to that kind of thing.
It's been a good year for OU in the Electoral College. So, I mean.
Jenny, who's going to win?
I think it's going to be Sam Bradford. And you know what? I don't know if you can go wrong with any of the three. I really don't. I think there are some years where a winner's announced and you think, wait a second, the wrong guy won this year. Really, I really do believe that if they say Tim Tebow, Sam Bradford, or Colt McCoy, for me, I'm not going to say, wait a second, the wrong guy won this thing. I really believe any of those three could win. I'm picking Sam Bradford to win, but any of them are very viable candidates.
Okay, for OU's sake, is it better if Sam doesn't win?
To me, recent history suggests that, maybe a Heisman Trophy winner doesn't play that well in bowl games. A lot of pressure, a lot of time demands. Tebow didn't win his bowl game last year. Got beat by Lloyd Carr in Michigan. Jason White lost his bowl game after his Heisman. So Now, Leinart won. They squeaked by the Sooners that year down in Miami. So, I mean, it doesn't always happen, but I mean, to me, it's not calamity for OU football if Sam doesn't win. There is a silver lining, which is that, generally speaking, he's going to have more time on his hands to get ready for Florida.
But I'm thinking big picture. If he wins, and then he wins the national title, there's no reason for him to stick around. So if he loses the Heisman, but here's the deal with Sam: he hasn't thought about the Heisman. We're thinking about it a lot more than he has.
The big question, though, got raised today in the paper. Jake Trotter broke the story that Sam is putting in his paperwork that will make him eligible for the NFL draft. Also, well, he can back out, of course, but the process has started, which is maybe a baby step, but just one more step towards leaving OU early. Is he going to leave, Jenny?
I think there's a good chance of it. I really do. I mean, it's not just about does he like college? Does he like college football? It's not necessarily that, because I think Sam Bradford is one of those guys that genuinely likes being in college. I think he likes being on campus. I think he likes going to class. But when you look at some of the other factors that are coming into play, a collective bargaining agreement that could make rookie salaries, well, not rookie salaries, but rookie big bonus checks go way down, is possibly going to be on the horizon. You're looking at a maybe weaker quarterback class this year. He could be the top overall pick in the draft, and that's guaranteed millions and millions of dollars. I think there's a chance that he could leave, and it's not going to be a reflection of what he thinks about being a college student or being a college athlete. I think it just might be a good money business decision. So I wouldn't be surprised if he left.
Well, I think he's just filing it's what he should do. You got to find out the unknown as best you can.
Right.
And she brought up the CBA. That's an unknown. Where he ranks, that's an unknown. Is he behind Stafford? Who knows? But even when you get answers, Mike, you don't get absolute answers. You just kind of get a feel. He's just going for a feel right now.
Nobody who's going to be drafted high, except for Matt Leinart, stays in school, do they, Barry?
You don't see it very often. Anybody that's going to be a top 10. Now, Leinart bucked the trend, but most guys the last 5 years or so have come out when they're pretty sure of being a top 10 pick. And I think Bradford will be. I don't know that he'll be the number one quarterback. It might be Stafford, but I think both those guys will go in the top 10 picks.
Okay, guys, let's switch to OSU. John, our special section theme for December 21st is Back to the Beach. For OSU, that means back to San Diego, back to the Holiday Bowl, site of their glorious 1988 victory, a huge offensive explosion. But now here come the Cowboys in a much different position, including stock position, than they were in when they went the last time.
Yeah.
What's the most intriguing off-the-field storyline for you for the OSU-Oregon match?
Well, unfortunately, they couldn't invite Wyoming again because that would have really helped their stats. I mean, you're asking me about stocks and Phil Knight and Boone Pickens. I'm too stupid to figure that stuff out. I know this. We've lost the same, we have the same amount of money now. A year ago they were way ahead of me, but now I think we're about even. So I don't know. I mean, Barry can talk about the uniforms because he's our fashion police, but it's two explosive offenses. This game could be in the 40s or 50s.
How about the big donor bowl? Boone Pickens against Phil Knight. We've written about this over time. When OU was playing Oregon, we wrote about Phil Knight having already done a lot of the things that Boone Pickens has been doing recently. But what have they bought? What have these two big boosters bought for their programs and themselves?
They have bought the possibility of competing at the highest level. Now, I would argue that Oregon has gotten there. Oklahoma State is not that far away. Oklahoma State's trying to get there. But Oregon is, until Pete Carroll got crazy here in the last 5 years, Oregon was the best football program in the Pac-10. They've dropped a little bit because of USC's ascension. But Oregon still is a fantastic football program. They finished number 2 in America in, 2001. And they've been to Rose Bowls. They're one of the elite programs. Now, they're not at the level of Florida, Oklahoma, USC, but they're not that far off either. And that's because Phil Knight infused that money. And the same thing with Boone Pickens. It's going to take time, and Oklahoma State might not get there, but they've got a chance because of that money.
Can you buy your way into the elite realm of college football, though?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, obviously they don't have tradition going for them, and you can't snap your fingers and write a check and suddenly have years and decades of tradition. But I think you can get to a level where you can compete, and as we've seen in the last couple years, especially in college football, the margin for error is, I mean, you can emerge. You can emerge in a year when things are crazy, as they have been these last few years. So, all it takes is a misstep that you're maybe not expecting a traditional power to make, and you could be right there. So, and who knows, if you make that jump into that stratosphere, do well, you could find yourself there on a regular basis. So it doesn't make up for tradition, but that doesn't mean you still can't get into an upper level of elite status, whether you're Oregon, Oklahoma State, or somebody else that might be out there that we haven't even talked about.
Well, it's like Barry said, it gives you the possibility, it gets you in the race. Before OSU went in the race.
Yeah.
Rare is the time you find a national champion with tattered facilities or a tattered arena or a poor athletic department. It gets you in the race. It gives you hope. It gives you a chance.
Money doesn't guarantee you a spot, but lack of money guarantees keeping you out.
You also wonder, as you were talking about Oregon and where they were before the sleeping giant of USC woke up, you sometimes wonder now whether, what Barry Switzer has said about Oklahoma State. Hey, I've toured their facilities. You better watch out. Is that what really got USC off its duff? Did Oregon and Phil Knight and their success in the early 90s produce the awakening of the USC program? And somebody at Southern Cal said, hey, Oregon's winning, and we're USC. Let's get moving.
Yeah, I think that had to be part of it. I mean, I don't think you could go up to Eugene and see what they've got and feel like you could just stand still and continue to – that's the one thing. You can't just – you have – that tradition is a weird thing. Getting it, obviously the Oklahomas, the Texases, the USCs, they have it, but you can't just rest on it. You can't think that that's going to get you through in today's college football world. So you have to stay in the arms race. I mean, we get back to that. So I don't know how it could have made USC people think they could just stand and build off of, past glory. So, yeah, I think it had to have an impact on the Trojans.
Hey, any early predictions on this game, John?
Oh, geez. No.
Besides a lot of points. Barry, who's going to win that game?
I mean, off the top of my head, I would say OSU because I think they've proven they have a better season, but I haven't studied it. I'd like to study it a little bit. Oregon really came on at the end, took care of Oregon State in Corvallis, knocked their arch rival out of the Rose Bowl. So Oregon's playing with its third quarterback from the start of the year, so they've really come on. It's a great matchup. It's one of the better bowl matchups. Easily one of the 5 or 6 best bowl matchups out there.
I'm going strong with OSU, and here's why. I think the Pac-10 was not that good this year, so even though Oregon did have a good finish to the year, I'm not overly impressed. Oklahoma State plays Texas close in Austin, beat Missouri on the road, gave Oklahoma a game right up until Oklahoma pulls away. I think Oklahoma State has a better all-around team. Offenses, you may be splitting hairs trying to pick a better offense, but defensively, I think Oklahoma State has an advantage in this game. Just getting a stop here or there might be the difference in winning this ball game.
Okay, now on to something that involves something we've studied a bunch and something that we're going to be studying. That's the BCS championship game between OU and Florida. Barry, has the Texas turmoil finally died down?
I think it'll die down after this Heisman deal. I think John's right when he says a little bit of Jenny wrote about it last week, and John has talking to people, found some truth to it that some people are voting for Colt McCoy just as a consolation prize. But once we get past the Heisman, Texas is going to be old news, and it's going to be Oklahoma versus Florida. So we'll have about 3 good weeks of just dissecting the big game, OU versus Florida. Now, if the Sooners lose, well, then Texas is back in the conversation. People saying, well, Oklahoma shouldn't have been there. But no, I think the spotlight for 3 weeks is going to be on OU and Florida, and the slant on the Sooners is not going to be Texas. The slant's going to be the 4 BCS bowl losses in a row. That's what's going to plague hover over the Sooners as they go to Miami.
Now, speaking of Miami, what does Miami mean to Sooner fans? I mean, we're going to write about this a lot in the coming weeks. The highest of highs and the lowest of lows on South Beach.
It's their home away from home every January. It's, the Big 8 tie-in and the Orange Bowl was great, and Switzer, lived there, part-time residents, and he's on their all-anniversary team as the best coach, along with Pete Carroll, who was there twice. But anyway, Barry, I got news for you. Texas is in the news whether OU wins or loses. If OU wins, will the AP voters say, hey, wait a minute, Texas beat them, why don't we vote for them? If OU loses, OU shouldn't have been there. So Texas will It's going to be interesting.
It's going to keep going?
Texas will be talking a lot from the Fiesta Bowl till the national championship game. Trust me.
Agreed.
Does Mac get to come on via a telephone interview during the BCS championship game?
Sure.
I suspect so.
If
Yeah.
the Sooners beat Florida, there's not any discussion. Nobody's going to sit around and say, "Ooh, Texas, maybe vote Texas number one." If
It's pretty tight in the AP
if
poll.
Oklahoma beats Florida, though, Texas might get a couple of first-place votes from ragamuffins, but it's going to be a runaway. Like I said, the curse on the Sooners is if they lose. But you're talking about Miami. The Sooners hadn't been there until this decade. They'd gone 12 years without being there, and now, as you said, they're home away from home. But now, greatest moment of Stoops' era and the worst moment of Stoops' era both occurred down in Miami at Dolphin Stadium. The victory over Florida State, the thrashing by Southern Cal. This will be the rubber match. Does Miami become a great place for Oklahoma football or a cursed place for Oklahoma football?
Mac Brown could drop by the press box. Didn't Tuberville do that in New Orleans?
Yes, he did.
Tommy Tuberville of Auburn, wanting the unbeaten Auburn and wanting some votes. And so maybe we'll see Mac Brown down at the
Hey,
Orleans.
Mac's a politician. It's not like it just started happening. I mean, Mac has been a politician from the word go. It's part of what makes Mac Mac. And so I'm not surprised by this anymore. If he comes on the national championship game, of course he's going to come on the national. That's what he does.
Now, you think he was politicking the moment after he won the national championship and he said, "I want to thank all the great high school football coaches in the state of Texas."
Keep sending your players my way.
Exactly. That was masterful. Hey, does this matchup, OU-Florida, prove that for now, offense is king in college football?
Sure seems that way. I mean, I think you've got – this is going to just be a great offensive matchup with innovative offenses, too. I mean, offenses that are doing stuff that not everybody else is doing. I think it's going to be great fun. And, you talk about the coaches that are out there getting hired to take over programs that have vacancies. I think a lot of them are being filled by offensive coordinators. Florida's offensive coordinator got hired at Mississippi State. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kevin Wilson get hired somewhere. If schools have openings, a lot of them are hiring offensive coordinators.
OU may have never played an offense like this Florida team, but the Florida fans, don't they look at this OU offense and say, "Hey, I've seen this before. Spurrier's fun and gun." Doesn't it look a lot like what OU's running these days?
Well, I don't remember Florida having the capability to run such power football as this team can do if it wants to. Just line up with a fullback and two tight ends and hammer behind a big line, and then without changing personnel, go into the spread and throw it around. Some elements are the same, but the variation, the diversity of this OU offense, in my opinion, is what sets it off. It can do so many different things. The only thing this offense doesn't do, literally, is run the option. It's the only thing. And actually, they ran was that against Stillwater? I think they actually ran sort of a halfway option. Bradford pitched the ball because nobody believes he's going to keep it. But they really do a lot of different things, and I think that's what sets it off from Spurrier's offense.
Okay, last question. Should you boo your own team? We've been hearing some boos at the Ford Center the last couple weeks. Against the Clippers 2 weeks ago, this week on Monday night, John, you and I were there, we heard a few boos. Mm-hmm. Politics and etiquette of sports to boo or not boo your own team. Jenny.
Well, I'm not somebody that boos a lot, but I think when you're paying as much as people are paying for tickets, when you're talking about pro-level sports, I don't know if I would boo if I was at a college game or a high school game, but if you're paying big time for tickets and these are professional athletes getting paid and coaches getting paid the way they're getting paid, and you don't like what you're seeing, I don't know why not.
John? Yeah, as long as it's just boos and not foul language and throwing stuff like that. But there's such a vast difference between the Thunder and the Hornets, not in their teams, but why they're there. I mean, this is our team. This is the team that we've been waiting for. The Hornets were our guests. It was temporary. It was a tragedy. Yeah. It was very temporary, and we took care of it. It was a tragedy was involved. So, booing then, not acceptable. Booing now, sure, why not?
I didn't really come across much to boo about the Hornets. I mean, even when they lost, they were competitive. This squad, I mean, they're close to embarrassing a good part of the time. This week alone, 2 games they had no business losing, and they find a way to lose them. I say boo them for this reason. I think somebody's listening when you boo. You got two choices if you're not pleased with the product. Stay home or go to the game and let somebody know your displeasure. I don't advocate staying home. That makes the city look bad. That puts the franchise a little bit behind the 8 ball. So spend your money, go, and let the people know you're not pleased with the product.
Hey, the last time the boos rained down, one game later, the coach was gone. Maybe you boo loud enough when we get a mascot in there. Hey, thanks, folks. That's all for the Press Row. Stay with the best coverage team anywhere, every morning in the New Look Oklahoman, and every minute on the state's most trusted website, newsok.com.